So, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depende na kung kailan nyo ito pinapanood. Welcome everyone. So, you have arrived to the second half or the part 2 of chapter 17, Maslow's Holistic Dynamic Theory. So, I am your reporter, Carl Jason B. Shera. So, just a brief intro lang na during the time na nire-review or pinag-aralan ko itong topic na to, no, I discovered na ito pala yung first na humanistic theory or perspective. Actually, holistic dynamic theory is the thread or yung kumonekta from psychoanalysis to humanistic perspective. Um, some ideas nga ni Maslow dito, the needs, the motivation, and the likes. Parang from psychoanalytic perspective pa siya. And nai-encounter natin yun in the discussion. No? So, humanistic perspective is considered na opposite ng psychoanalysis. And Abraham Maslow is a psychoanalyst and a behaviorist after all. So, next, this is our team, no? Lindsay Farol, my teammate, already discussed to you the biography, the overview of the holistic dynamic theory, Maslow's basic assumption, the hierarchy of needs, excluding self-actualization, and even the other needs, which is the aesthetic, cognitive, and neurotic needs. At this moment, no, ang i-discuss ko ay the general discussion of needs, the self-actualization. Dito, we need to question, well, who is these people? We need to identify the criteria, the values, and the characteristics of those self-actualizing people. We also need to encounter or may encounter natin sa theory na to is the Jonah complex. Malalaman natin why this concept, nasali siya dito. We'll also discuss psychotherapy, critic of Maslow, which hindi naman talaga critic of Maslow, pero the theory of Maslow, no? Discussed also concept of humanity, and sinali ko na lang yung key terms and concepts para at the time that you review the PPT or yung video man, uh, or yung copy man itong report na to, may shortcuts na kayo. So next, our intended learning outcomes at the end of the discussion, students are able to, number one, to know and understand what is self-actualization. Number two, to identify the characteristics and values of self-actualized people. And of course, the number three, to critique Maslow's theory. So this is an overview of the hierarchy of needs. Like what I've said, this is the five levels of needs and natapos na nga yung lower level needs. And ang hindi na lang na-discuss ay yung self-actualization. So let's start. General discussions of needs. Maslow estimated that a hypothetical average person has his or her needs satisfied to approximately these levels. So sa physiological, 85%, safety, 70%, love and belongingness, 50%, and esteem is 40%, and also self-actualization is 10%. So dito, hindi naman kailangan talaga na 100%. The physiological, pwedeng 85 lang. Sa safety, for example, pwedeng 70 lang because we know we cannot control all the things. May mga mangyayari talaga. Love and belongingness, only 50%, kaya parang delusional. Yung mga tao nagsasabi na kailangan talaga lahat ng tao sa paligid nila or lahat ng tao sa buong mundo, kailangan mahal sila or kailangan tanggap sila. No, only 50%. Esteem 40%, and of course, self-actualization. Actually, nakalagay dito 10% lang. This is a statistical proof or a statistical evidence na maliit lang yung mga taong nakaka-move on, nakaka-move up sa level ng self-actualization. So, the next one is reversed order of needs. Reverse orders of needs. Reversals, however, are usually more apparent than real, and some seemingly obvious deviations in the order of needs are not variations at all. If we understood the unconscious motivation underlying the behavior, we would recognize that the needs are not reversed. So, needs daw ay nagre-reverse. For example, ay yung mga starving artist na tinatawag. Tinatapos muna yung mga activities before sila kumain, kaya yung iba nga nagkakasakit. Ang sabi dito ni Maslow, hindi naman talaga daw nagre-reverse yung order ng needs. Nagkakataon lang siguro na yung iba, yung manifestation of how they fulfill the needs, um, iba yung case sa kanila. So, in this case, yung sa example natin, sa mga starving artist, they are doing, for example, art, they are doing art to fulfill actually their basic needs. And they believe na kapag natapos nila yung project, yung work, yung art nila, they can sell. And of course, kapag na-sell nila yon, kapag may benta, may pangkain sila, may pambili ng bahay, or whatsoever essential in their lives. Unconsciously, they are still motivated by the lower level needs. Yun nga lang, iba lang yung manifestation. You see? Hindi, Maslow explained na hindi naman nagre-reverse yung order ng needs. Ganun pa din yun dahil yung motivation of how you do or how you fulfill that work anchored in your lower level needs. So next is unmotivated behavior. Some behavior is not caused by needs, but by other factors such as conditioned reflexes, maturation, or drugs. So usually, expressive behaviors are unmotivated behaviors. Ayan, nakalagay naman dyan. Expressive behavior which is often unmotivated. We will discuss this further in the next slide. So, expressive behavior is often an end in itself and serves no other purpose than to be. Example is kung paano lumakad yung isang tao, which is specifically includes one's gait, gesture, voice, smile. Eto, nakaspecify smile even when alone. Why? Because people, kahit hindi niya pilitin, pwede siyang mag-smile. And that's an expressive behavior, unmotivated. There's nothing na nag-motivate sa kanya to smile because alone siya, but then pwede na nag-smile lang siya. And in other hand, coping behavior naman is ordinarily conscious, effortful, learned, and determined by the external environment. It involves the individual's attempt to cope with the environment to secure food and shelter, to make friends, and to receive acceptance, appreciation, and prestige from others. So, coping behavior is sort of a how you fulfill the need, and we have different ways of coping, of fulfilling our needs. Nakadepende siya sa environment. Iba yung way ng mga tao na lumaki sa mga war-torn country compared to those in a peaceful country or in a first world countries. So next is the deprivation of physiological needs. Of course, if one or an individual is deprived of a physiological needs, it can result into malnutrition, fatigue, loss of energy, obsession with sex, and so on. And then if safety needs naman ang may threat, lead to fear, insecurity, and dread. And if the need for love and belongingness naman ay unfulfilled, a person becomes defensive, overly aggressive, or socially timid. If the esteem needs naman ang naapektuhan, you do have lack of esteem, it can also result in the illnesses of self-doubts, self-depreciation, and lack of confidence. So, the last one, sa self-actualization naman daw, if one or an individual is deprived of self-actualization needs, it can also lead to pathology or more accurately, methapathology. So dito, parang contradictory siya. Madediscuss natin later on yan sa criteria kasi parang hindi naman na kailangan sabihin na deprivation of self-actualization needs can lead to pathology kasi sa criteria niya nga may binigay siya doon na parang nagko-contradictory dito. So later on, madidiscuss pa natin yan. Next is the extinctoid nature of needs. Maslow hypothesizes that some human needs are innately determined even though they can be modified by learning. Comparison of higher lower needs. First, higher level needs are later on the phylogenetic or evolutionary scale. Second, higher level needs produce more happiness and more peak experiences. We will also discuss peak experiences later. Although satisfaction of lower level needs may produce a degree of pleasure, and the hedonistic pleasure, however, is usually temporary and not comparable to the quality of happiness produced by the satisfaction of higher needs. So, it just means na if mapapansin nyo sa table or yung sa hierarchy of needs, wait, balikan natin. Hierarchy of needs, ayan. Hierarchy of needs, very reminiscent or very salient yung fact na yung nasa baba, which is the lower level needs, are very animalistic. Animalistic in a sense na self-actualization can only be acquired by humanity. Kumbaga, the lower level needs, ito yung area na pwedeng ma-share natin with other animals. Parang related kasi siya sa complex development ng brain. The more complex ang development ng brain ng isang animal, the more na nagiging complex yung mga needs niya. Parang we can associate this with the dichotomy of from, pero yung kay Maslow, ginawa niyang step by step. So next, so we have arrived to self-actualizations. The main question here is who are these people? By answering these, we will be discussing the characteristics, the values, and of course, the criteria for us to be able to know who are these people who experience or who moved out into self-actualization. So self-actualization needs actually include self-fulfillment, the realization of all one's potential, and a desire to become more creative in the full sense of the word. So it's just that it just means na if you self-actualize, you do have a mastery of yourself, you do have a mastery of your surroundings, and you are in your maximum level. Self-actualized people actually are those ones who feel or want or that they have this need to become self-fulfilled. They want to be creative in every sense. Ibig sabihin, they want to create relationships, they want to create projects, they want to create something more bigger than themselves. And yung mga taong nagsiself-actualize ay nasa transcendence nila. Yung mga taong nagsiself-realization, nasa syndrome of growth nila. So when lower level needs are satisfied, people proceed more or less automatically to the next level. However, once esteem needs are met, they do not always move to the level of self-actualization. Dito naman, it just means na most people stop in esteem needs. Because if you are in self-actualization, in the level of self-actualization, hindi na masyado focus sa esteem needs. Parang you are in a different level or in a higher level of esteem. Hindi na masyado or we can say na wala na silang pakialam with the reputation even though we know naman na usually self-actualized people have already good reputation because it follows naman if mataas na ang self-esteem ng isang tao or ng nag-self-actualizer, yung reputation magpa-follow na lang yon. If you self-actualize, people will have a hard time not noticing you because you are maximizing all of your levels. So, also, one reason here na parang nagsistay lang sila sa esteem needs are met, they do not always move to the level of self of self-actualization is yung statistics kanina na parang it's so hard to be on the level of self-actualization na nasabi na 10% lang yung nagsi-self-actualize. So self-actualizing people maintain their feelings of self-esteem even when scorned, rejected, and dismissed by other people. In other words, self-actualizers are not dependent on the satisfaction of either love or esteem needs. They become independent from the lower level needs that gave them birth. So when you are in the self-actualization na level, madidiscuss natin yan later on sa mga characteristics. Why kaya na-maintain nila yung feelings? Even feelings of self-esteem, even na people just scorn them, rejected them, or dismissed them. So we have arrived now for the criteria for self-actualization. So these are the conditions na kailangan ma-meet ng isang individual after niya ma-fulfill yung lower level needs para na mag-self-actualize siya. So first, they were free from psychopathology. That's what I am saying kanina na parang contradictory siya sa sinabi niya na deprivation of self-actualization needs leads to pathology. Kasi nga, in the first place, you cannot self-actualize if you have experience or if you had a psychopathology in your life. 'Di ba? Very strict siya. If meron kang psychopathology, hindi ka na pwedeng mag-self-actualize. Tapos. First pa lang yun na criteria. Second, these self-actualizing people had progressed through the hierarchy of needs and therefore live above the subsistence level of existence and had no ever-present threat to their safety. Of course, tapos mo na yung lower level needs. Hindi ka makaka-proceed in the self-actualization stage or level sa hierarchy of needs if you did not fulfill all your needs starting from physiological, safety, love and belongingness, and the esteem needs. Number 3, Maslow's third criterion for self-actualization was embracing of B values. You know, ang masasabi ko lang dito, this is one of the most important na kailangan meron ang isang tao to self-actualize. B values meaning being values. Madidiscuss din natin yan next. Na if an individual do not have also this values, hindi din siya makakapag self-actualize. Next is the fourth, self-actualizers fulfill their needs to grow, to develop, and to increasingly become what they were capable of becoming. So, ang parang metaphor dito is that or ang analogy dito is that yung tao is parang seeds. For example, seed tayo ng mangga or kahit anong puno na lang na maisip nyo. Pag yung mangga ma-fulfill niya yung physiological needs niya, siguro nadidiligan siya, have a sufficient or enough na exposure sa sunlight, maganda yung ventilation, the air, and the quality of the soil is also good. Yun yung mga food niya or the physiological needs niya. Then of course, safe siya. Walang namimitas, walang mga peste. Safe, fulfilled ang safety needs niya. Love and belongingness, of course, even though we don't know. Pero parang sabi nila, di ba, parang plants do feel when they are loved. Kapag siguro nadidiligan siya or some plantitas or plantitos, kinakausap yung mga plants nila, they feel or fulfill their love and belongingness. And of course, kapag lumaki yung mangga at namunga siya, pwede natin yung i-convert as the self-actualize, sa esteem needs niya. Then yung mangga, hindi lang siya nagsa-stop doon. If yung mangga na yon ay mamumunga ng napakasarap, napakarami, At yung mga tao ma-identify siya na, eto yung mangga na masarap yung bunga, eto yung mangga na napakarami mamunga, then nag-self-actualize pa siya. Na express or nagagawa niya yung full potential niya as a mangga. So, ganun din sa atin na mga tao, in self-actualizing, nagiging capable tayo to do what is the ultimate na kaya ng humanity. Um, Hindi lang siya, we can say na sa mga tao hindi lang siya basta-basta nag-excel in one path or can we say sa chosen course niya, but then humanity as a whole. Kung ano yung full potential ng isang tao, kung ano yung ultimate na capable siya of doing, na fulfill niya yun in the level of self-actualization needs. So next is this being values. So being values, Maslow turned B values, meta needs to indicate that they are ultimate level of needs. He distinguished between ordinary need, motivation, and motives of self-actualizing people, which he called meta motivation. So dito naman, these are the conditions before you achieve self-actualization. Like what I've said kanina, very important ito. Kung baga, ito yung special ingredient ng isang tao para mapunta or ma-achieve niya yung self-actualization needs. Sa mga taong hindi uh, nagkaroon or nag-e-embrace ng B values, mas maliit yung chance na ma-achieve nila yung self-actualization. So, eto, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 na being values, kailangan nasa tao yan for him or for her to be able to have a higher chance na mag-self-actualize. Meta-motivation is characterized by expressive rather than coping behavior and is associated with B values. So, it means, kanina discuss natin what is this expressive behavior. And innate kasi siya sa tao, itong mga V values. Hindi siya pilit. It just naturally goes out. Itong mga nasasabi dito na truth, goodness, beauty, and so on and so forth. Yung mga values na yan, hindi siya pinipilit or minomotivate na gawin, kundi ina-express lang siya ng isang taong nagsiself-actualize naturally. Deprivation of any of B values results in metapathology or the lack of a meaningful philosophy of life. So, dito naman, parang same lang pa din yung masasabi ko dito with the past na parang no need to discuss about this deprivation of NB values results in metapathology kasi nga in the criteria those na may mga metapathology cannot self-actualize. Next is the characteristics of self-actualizers. So we have 15 characteristics of self-actualizers. Marami-rami po ito. So let's just fast track. Number 1 is the more efficient perception of reality. They can discriminate between the genuine and fake, not only in people, but also in literature, art, and music. So sabi dito sa notes ko, alam nila kung sino yung mga taong peke or binubola lang sila because nakikita nila or mas nakikita nila yung reality in a more efficient manner. Kumbaga, they can see if the people fake their actions, their behaviors, and they can also see if genuine yun sila. Not only in people, but also in literature, art, and music because artists or yung mga composers, they do put soul in their arts, in their masterpieces, and their outputs. Kaya this self-actualizer siguro nakikita or nade-distinguish nila if an output, if an artwork, if a masterpiece is not genuine, kundi parang fake lang yun. Number two is the acceptance of self, others, and nature. Self-actualizing people can accept themselves the way they are. They lack defensiveness, phoniness, and self-defeating guilt, have good hearty animal appetites for food, sleep, and sex, are not overly critical of their own shortcoming, and are not burdened by undue anxiety or shame. So dito naman, they do have acceptance of the self. They know what their strengths and weaknesses are. They know themselves first. They also do have a good relationship with other because they are accepting of others, whether you came from a different race, whether you are in a different gender, even though you do have a different skin color. They are not racist, they are not sexist, but they do accept diversity of others. Also with nature, they are loving, they are nature lover. They appreciate things around them and they do accept it. Actually, na-note ko nga dito na parang same siya with the syndrome of growth ni Fromm because you do have the unity of the self, the others, and the nature. Next, number three is the spontaneity, simplicity, and naturalness. They are unconventional but not compulsively so. They are highly ethical but may appear unethical or non-conforming. But when the situation warrants it, they can be unconventional and uncompromising, even at the price of ostracism and censure. They ordinarily live simple lives in the sense that they have no need to erect complex veneer design to deceive the world. They are unpretentious and not afraid or ashamed to express joy, awe, elation, sorrow, anger, or other deeply felt emotions. So, yung mga nagsiself-actualizers, very natural lang sila. They do not need to fake themselves. They do not, like for example, they do not post something on social media just to brag, but they genuinely just want to show their achievements. They are spontaneous, hindi sila planner. They are flexible. They do not flexible with time and places and decisions, not necessarily flexible with them bodies. Simplicity, they are simple, not really that kind of persons na dapat grandiose, dapat bongacious always. They do have their own sense of styles. They follow their own decisions na parang they are not intimidated to go different from others because they know that it's what's the best or what's right for themselves. Number four is problem centering. Non self actualization actualizing people are self centered and tend to see all the world's problems in relation to themselves, whereas self actualizing people are task oriented and concerned with problems outside themselves. They are concerned with internal problems and adopt a solid philosophical and ethical basis for handling these problems. So, this just means na non-self-actualizing people or us na lang kasi hindi pa naman tayo nagsiself-actualize, we tend to, in facing problems, we tend to seek yung taong rason why we face that problems and blame that person. But on the other hand, self-actualizers do not seek a person to blame, but they do seek solutions for the problem. They are confident in facing problems because they know they are able to have solutions for it. Not necessarily na because they can or they are able to have solutions for these problems, pwede nating sabihin na, Uy, self-actualizers ka, you can solve the problems of the world. No, that's just in relation with themselves, not necessarily solving the problem of the world because the problem of the world is not gonna be given a solution by a single person, but with the cooperation of everybody. They are concerned. Etong number two, they are concerned with eternal problems and adopt a solid philosophical and ethical basis for handling these problems. That's really beautiful of self-actualizers, no? They do face problems in a philosophical and have an ethical base for it. Next, number five, need for privacy. Self-actualizing people have a quality of detachment that allows them to be alone without being lonely. They feel relaxed and comfortable when they are either with people or alone. Self-actualizing people may seem as aloof or uninterested, but in fact, their disinterest is limited to minor matters. So self-actualizers, even they accept others and nature, even they do appreciate things, they also need privacy. They do also know how to limit themselves from people, but not to the point of moving away for people or moving against for people, but they just know or they are comfortable being alone and being with other people. They do not have problem being alone, and they do not have any problem um, with other people. But ang maganda sa kanila, they are able to know their need for privacy. Kasi yung iba naman, parang sobra-sobra ng they love to be with other people, then hindi na sila masyadong masaya when they alone. Some naman, sobrang saya when they alone, and hindi naman sila comfortable when they're with other people. So sila, they are balanced. They can be comfortable when they are alone. They can enjoy, and still they can also be comfortable and they can enjoy with other people. Next, number six is autonomy. Self-actualizing people are autonomous and depend on themselves for growth, even though at some time in their past they had to have received love and security from others. Self-actualizing people have confidence and therefore a large measure of autonomy that allows them to be unperturbed by criticisms as well as unmoved by flattery. This independence also gives them an inner peace and serenity not enjoyed by those who live for approval of others. So they do have independence. They do not need to be conforming of all the standards of the society. They do not need to really follow the trends given by the social medias, but they know how to be independent themselves. They also accept criticisms. They know how to utilize criticisms, and they can also give criticisms. They not really dwelling on those criticisms na pwedeng mag-lead sa anxiety, but they just use it to have a betterment on themselves. They are unmoved by flattery and do not live for the approval of others. Like what I said earlier, they not pretentious. 'Di ba? Self-actualizers, they, like what I've said din kanina, they do have a different sense of style or with the way they handle themselves, pero not in a sense naman na parang weirdo sila. Pero minsan nililabel kasi sila na gano'n. But the most important thing here in autonomy is that they are autonomous and um, they have a value of independence from others. So next, number seven, continued freshness of appreciation. Maslow wrote that self-actualizing people have the wonderful capacity to appreciate again and again, freshly and naively, the basic goods of life with awe, pleasure, wonder, and even ecstasy. They have an appreciation of their possessions and do not waste time complaining about a boring and interesting existence, or in short, they retain their constant sense of good fortune and gratitude for it. So, kumbaga, in simple terms, we can say they are appreciative for everything they are experiencing right here, right now. They do appreciate the things happening in their lives, with their circumstances, with their challenges. They appreciate it, and they are optimistically appreciate things happening in their lives. Next, number eight, we have the peak experience. experiences. The peak experience is unmotivated, non-striving, and non-wishing, and during such an experience, a person experiences no need, wants, or deficiencies. So dito sa peak experiences, maybe some of you experience moments na parang you are really focused on writing to the point na you do not have a care about what's happening in your surrounding. You do not have a track about the time to the point na it's been hours you've been writing and writing and writing and you do not had the time to eat. Pero hindi mo namamalayan na nagugutom ka. Hindi mo namamalayan that it's been so long. And hindi mo namamalayan parang unconsciously nagagawa mo yun ng hindi mo namamalayan. And yung feeling mo nandun, it's parang nasa ecstasy ka. Uh, you're really high because ideas, words are really coming into your mind at naisusulat mo yun. So, that experiences can be considered peak experiences. I'm not saying na same experience ng peak experiences yung sa self-actualizers, pero siguro parang mas marami or more often na experience nila ito. Next, number 9 is the Gemeinschaftsgefühl. It is same with other social interests. Self-actualizers may become angry, impatient, or disgusted with others, but they retain a feeling of affection for human beings in general. More specifically, Maslow stated that self-actualizing people are often saddened, exasperated, and even enraged by the shortcomings of the average person. So, at this point, same with Adler, no, na self-actualizers, they do value the society or the human beings in general. Of course, sometimes talaga it's natural na individual will felt angry, impatient, or disgusted with others. Pero as a whole, uh, self-actualizers actually value because they are appreciative, because they do accept others. So they have these characteristics of Gemeinschaftsgefühl or same with others, social interest. Next, number 10 is the profound interpersonal relations. So dito naman, self-actualizers have a nurturant feeling toward people in general, but their close friendships are limited to only a few. So dito, because on the previous one, they do have a value of social interest or a characteristic, I mean, of a love or acceptance or appreciation with others, with the society or the human being as a whole. Pero kaya din naman nilang i-limit yung interpersonal relationships nila with close friendships. Maybe few lang, maliit lang yung numbers, but that's not the point. Maliit man, at least true, 'di ba? Walang plastic. That's good. That's still a good relationships. Number 11, a democratic character structure. They could be friendly and considerate with other people regardless of class, color, age, or gender. And in fact, they seem to be quite unaware of superficial differences among people. So dito naman, they do not care about class, color, age, or gender. Sabi ko nga kanina, they are not racist, they are not sexist because they accept people and that's manifesting in a democratic character structure. Next, number 12 is discrimination between means and ends. Self-actualizing people have a clear sense of right and wrong conduct and have little conflict about basic values. They set their sights on ends rather than means and have an unusual ability to distinguish between the two. So they know how to differentiate means from ends, and mostly they do see things as a means. Like for example, people are exercising. And for non-self-actualizers, parang naiisip nila, they're exercising for what? For losing weight. But for self-actualizers, they are exercising, yes, also for losing weight, but exercising enough is a means for them. Masaya sila in doing that thing. They appreciate still that thing. And for non-self-actualizers, parang they complain na parang mahirap, kakatamad, or parang they do not see changes with their weights or they do not see losing of weight, parang ang hirap. But with self-actualizers, with people who self-actualize, they do uh, differentiate this as means. Mostly. Siguro. Kasi hindi naman talaga ako sure if yun yung feeling nila. Pero siguro, most of the time, mas mas tinitingnan nila yung isang bagay as a means. Number 13, philosophical sense of humor. Healthy people see little humor in put down jokes. They may poke fun at themselves but not masochistically so. They make fewer tries at humor than others, but their attempts serve a purpose beyond making people laugh. So here in the Philippines, sense of humor, accept it or not, dito sa atin, sometimes sense of humor are found in dragging other people down. Just for the sake of laughter, just for the sake of fun, we do poke other people to be down. Ibinababa natin yung other people, nilalait natin yung other people just to have an circle or idea or thing na pwede nating tawanan. Pero in self-actualizers, they poke fun mainly at themselves. Pero hindi masochistically so. No, hindi naman nila sinasaktan yung mga sarili nila or hindi sila nag-enjoy na sinasaktan yung sarili nila, but they mainly or they purposely na poke fun with themselves because that serve as a that attempt serves as a purpose beyond making people laugh. So in making people laugh, there is a philosophical meaning behind it. There is a message behind it. So yun yung beauty nun. Hindi lang basta-basta tawa, tawa, ha ha ha. After that, wala na. Sila, they do have a hidden message, a great philosophical meaning with the way of sense of humor. Next is number 14, creativeness. Not all self-actualizers are talented or creative in the arts, but all are creative in their own way. They have a keen perception of truth, beauty, and reality, ingredients that form the foundation of true creativity. So dito, not necessarily na self-actualizers are artists, but they are creative in their own way. Because like what I've said din kanina, they do have a different sense of style, sense of uh, or whatsoever sense they have sa ibang tao. They do not follow what the society tells so because they know what's best for them, and in that way they express creativeness. And lastly, number 15 is the resistance to inculturation. Self-actualizing people have sense of detachment from their surrounding and are able to transcend a particular culture. They are autonomous, following their own standard of conduct and not blindly obeying the rules of others. Self-actualizing people do not waste energy fighting against insignificant costumes and regulations of society. Such folkways as dress, hairstyle, and traffic laws are relatively arbitrary, and self-actualizing people do not make a conscious show of defying this convention. So, as you know, culture here in the Philippines, medyo toxic. Um, culture culture is a very powerful force in influencing our personality, and self-actualizers is very resistant to culturation. That's really good, no? really do not follow those cultures na sa tingin nila hindi naman dapat sundin. They can differentiate those things na makakabuti sa kanila and they follow it. And they can also differentiate those things na hindi tama at hindi nakakabuti sa isang tao and they are confident and not doing it. They do not need to conform with other people's belief just for the sake na maging accepted sila in that particular society, in that particular group. Kundi they are resistance to inculturation. Hindi naman na nagiging weird sila in a way or uh, nagiging uh, hindi na mabuti sa paningin ng ibang tao, but they are just unique individuals who has a higher resistance of inculturation or with influence, or mainly we can say bad influence of other people. Or I'm not saying naman na other people's culture are bad, no. It's just that like what I've said kanina, self-actualizers know na kung ano yung tama for themselves, ha? For themselves. And yun lang yung susundin nila. And if sa tingin nila hindi, then hindi. Wow, so that's it for the characteristics of self-actualizers. And to proceed, the next is the Jonah complex. So, itong Jonah complex, uh, this is or this came from a biblical story and a biblical character, Jonah. So, the ba story ni Jonah, I will just make this short. Jonah is a person or an individual who possess high potential, who possess ultimate potential, and God asked him to go to this area to express or to exercise his full potential. But what Jonah did was may lack of self-esteem siguro siya na feeling niya hindi niya kaya. Then sumakay siya sa ibang barko. Then on that note, nagalit yung Panginoon and pinabagyo. Tapos si Jonah tinapon ng mga kasamahan niya sa barko, sa dagat. And kinain siya ng malaking isda and pinabalik si Jonah doon. So what does this biblical story or a biblical character means? What does this concept, the Jonah complex, means on this theory? So according to Maslow, everyone is born with a will toward health, a tendency to grow towards self-actualization, but few people reach it. What prevents people from achieving this high level of health? Another obstacle that often blocks people's growth towards self-actualization is the Jonah complex, or the fear of being one's best. The Jonah complex is characterized by attempt to run away from one's destiny, just as the biblical Jonah tried to escape from his fate. So meaning, sabi ni Maslow, lahat naman daw talaga may kakayahan to self-actualize, pero bakit maliit lang yung number? Only 10% of people move up to this level, the self-actualization. Kasi nga, yung iba, takot lang or hindi alam how to exercise or how to be able to achieve the highest potential of being a human being. So the Jonah complex, which is found in nearly everyone, represents a fear of success, a fear of being one's best, and a feeling of awesomeness in the presence of beauty and perfection. So a great example of this is Maslow itself. 'Di ba? Maslow, na I think na-mention sa biography niya that Maslow has a really high IQ compared to other people. But what happened to his academic performance? Tamad. Tamad si Maslow mag-study, tamad si Maslow na ipakita sa ibang tao na matalino siya. That's why, mas na-appreciate yung iba kasi sa kanya. Even though mataas naman talaga yung IQ ni Maslow. Most people, he reasoned, have private ambition to be great, to write a great novel, to be a movie star, to become a world famous scientist, and so on. However, when they compare themselves with those who have accomplished greatness, they are appalled by their own arrogance. Who am I questioning? Who am I to think I could do as well as this great person? So, comparison. Kino-compare natin yung sarili natin dun sa mga tao na matataas na. Parang, kaya ko ba 'to? Mapapantayan ko ba siya? Or, ah, puwede ba ako maging katulad niya? And because of that, tinitingnan natin yung self-ano natin, ah, yung self-worth natin. And kapag na-defeat tayo ng fear of being one's best, and fear of success, dito na papasok yung Jonah complex. People allow false humility to stifle creativity, and thus they prevent themselves from becoming self-actualizing. Actually, that's just the same of what I am saying. Because we do allow false humility na mangyari sa self natin, nagpe-prevent tayo to actually move up to self-actualization and just to retain in self-esteem needs. Nakokontento na tayo for being what we are, not knowing that we can achieve more or we can exercise higher potential than we are today. This Jonah complex also is almost the same with excuses of Adler's safeguarding tendencies. So, doon kay Adler, may na-mention doon na mga safeguarding tendencies na ah, parang ayaw ko, ganun, or ikaw na lang dyan kasi mas mabuti mas magaling ka sa akin. That's excuses. That's just almost the same of this Jonah complex. Next. So next is psychotherapy. To Maslow, the aim of therapy would be for clients to embrace the being values, that is to value truth, justice, goodness, and so on and so forth. And to accomplish this aim, clients must be free from their dependency on others so that their natural impulse toward growth and self-actualizing could become active. The goals of psychology follows from the client's position on the hierarchy of needs, because physiological and safety needs are prepotent. People operating on these levels will not ordinarily be motivated to seek psychotherapy. Instead, they will strive to obtain nourishment and protection. Itong number three, ikatatlo na bullet, this is a really rampant issue here in the Philippines, a reality here in the Philippines na why does the government do not emphasize importance or hindi nila pinapahalagahan or napapansin yung mental health? Because above all, they do see lower level needs as more important. Those in physiological and safety needs talaga. Why they do have advocacy or plans na platforms na nagka-focus doon lang sa psycho or physiological and safety needs. Kaya yung ibang tao is hindi na nagsisik for psychotherapy. Uh, that's a reality here in the Philippines na sana na tayong mga informed and aware, we need also to help them know na hindi lang hanggang doon yung needs na kailangan natin i-fulfill. Hindi lang kailangan sa physiological and safety needs yung fulfillment. But then we need to also fulfill our mental health. We do have also need politicians or candidates who has an advocacy and mental health support. So, malapit ng election, choose and vote wisely. So next is the critique of Maslow, or like what I've said at the first part of this video, that not necessarily Maslow, but there's a critique of Maslow's theory or this holistic dynamic theory. So why? Bakit sinali ko pa ito? Because I think TOP hindi lang basta-basta tinuturo sa atin itong mga theories na 'to, kundi dapat tayo skeptical din tayo na malaman or skeptical din tayo to critique these theories kasi nga like kanina I do have personal insights na sinasabi ko na parang contradicting naman doon sa kabila and parang unessential naman dito because that's what I observe in critiquing this theory. And sabi nga ng earlier reporters, I think that's Miss Okoy, na we need to be skeptical in understanding that these scientists or these proponents of these theories are also persons. And hindi perfect itong mga theories nila. So, in generating research, we can say that it is slightly above average. Yes, nag-generate naman ng research, but unlike others, like siguro yung mga MBTI, 16 personality factors, like yun, ano talaga, na marami talaga yung na-generate ng mga researches. Falsification is low as it builds on some concepts of psychoanalysis, like what I've said kanina, na may mention pa din sa theory na to ang needs, motivation, drives, which is part of the psychoanalysis na sinabi ng iba na unobservable. That's why nga nandiyan ang behaviorism and traits, and that is why we can say the falsification is low. Organization of knowledge is high because front lang po yung simplicity ng 5 level of needs. As you can see, hirap na hirap ako to explain, especially the characteristics because hindi ko naman siya na experience. So the organization of knowledge is very high. Application, yes. Na-apply naman ito, especially in organizations. And internal consistency is low. And parsimony is just okay. Like what I've said, hirap na hirap ako to explain this theory, especially those characteristics, especially the self-actualization, kasi nga, hindi ko naman na-experience ito. That's why self-actualization dyan, nakalagay, nakaparenthesis, is somehow arcane. Parsimony niya is also just okay. Kasi, as a non-self-actualizer, it's so hard to understand and to know whether all the statements here, whether all the characteristics here are correct. Concept of humanity, free choice over determinism, optimistic and teleological. Actually, this three is the branding of humanistic perspective, uniqueness and similarity. Yes, it's unique because like what I've said, parang ito yung una na humanistic. And the similarity, may mga similarities pa naman siya with others like the needs, the motivations, and like a concept seems with Adler's. Conscious, yes, may medyo nasa conscious na part ito wherein hindi na namin mention yung mga collective conscious, more on alam ng tao yung ginagawa niya dito. Social influence versus biology is false dichotomy since according to Maslow, people are both influences by both. I mean, people are influenced by both. No, hindi people are both influenced by both. So, like what Mamaika is saying to us, that nature versus nurture is not correct, but rather the correct one is nature and nurture because people or tayo we are predispositioned to do something, but if the environment allows, then we can achieve more and we can exercise a higher potential than we are predestined to be. And that's nature and nurture. So the key terms, I will not read na this because it will take a longer time. These are the key terms and concepts, the summary of this report, and this is my reference, only the module or the book, and that's it. Thank you for listening, and I hope even with the way I explained, you learned something. Thank you very much for listening. Have a good day, have a good afternoon, or have a good evening. Bye bye.